Well, I called it, but I ain't happy I was right. So the D.O.T. announced that they're cracking down again. What are they cracking down on? Logbook violations. But not the ones like you think. Guys are getting in there and manipulating the logbooks. There's ghost drivers out. And there's all sorts of other rewrites and stuff that's happening on a digital level. But hey, I thought E-Log was supposed to stop all this, you say, screaming into your screen. Well, I told you this would happen, and I'll tell you how. So what do the owners of companies have that the company driver doesn't? Administrative access to your logbooks. They can change things, they can manipulate things, they can rewrite things, they can send things back. And it's happening. But it's not supposed to. Well, no. But do you know how many one-truck outfits there are? And when you have one truck and a business and a D.O.T. number, you have administrative access to your logbooks. Oh, sorry for the dirty windshield, but there goes a light show. Love it. What I'm saying is logbook manipulation just went corporate. It's the next day, got a little dark. Now everybody knows who's watched this and watched me knows that I've done a few shady things. But back in the day, it was nothing to tighten up your logs. Ooh, something took something there. But yeah, we used to sit there and tighten up our, yeah, we're gonna need a washout. So you'd sit there and tighten up your logs. You know, pretty much all the cop ever wanted to see was nothing wrong. Well, that's gonna need air. So there was two kinds of drivers back in the day. The guys that kept it on the up and up and just kept it tight, and there were the other ones. And who was who depended on the week. Much like now, there's just some loads that are incredibly unforgiving. And then when you have a dispatcher that piles things on that need to get covered, that should have been covered, it makes life hard, and sometimes you'd have to get a little creative. And you know, the D.O.T. back in the day, they understood that. They didn't have a problem with a little bit of creativity as long as it looked good when they pulled you over. They didn't want to see any problems, and it wasn't just blatant. But now, these guys have just absolutely abused the privilege. We got this certain series of trailer that seems to like all of the air. We got a certain series of these, I think it's a Great Dane, that it's like when you pull the pin to slide or it runs out, it's like it just doesn't dump the bags, or it dumps all of it. It's like it opens up and says I'm free and everything's gone. And man, it likes the air, so it takes a while. And you get one of these still if you're in the yard trying to slide the tandems, if it's loaded, it is a nightmare. So yeah, let's get these windows washed and we'll get going. Well, I've got the windows somewhat clean, so I'm going to take off. I got about half a tank, so that should get me down to New London, Missouri, and we'll just catch you there. This one ain't about driving. This is one about fudging logbooks. So I've fudged this one to 7 minutes, so let's get going on the road, and we'll see you then. So we stopped in Missouri. We stopped in Cutaway. I didn't film any of it because it's been a long, stressful day. I've got 7 minutes left on my book, and I'm here at the Tennessean. So we're gonna go in and see what this has to offer. I think it's gonna be pay to park here soon. Normally this kind of thing wouldn't bother me, but this, since they rebuilt it, it's really not even a truck stop. It has truck parking, but it's not geared towards even travelers, really. It's not even a shadow of what it was before. But with 7 minutes on your clock, that's just what you got to do. So, hey. Well, third time being here. Third time not getting served. Like I said, I guess it's my fault. Anyhow, I got a salad in the truck. I guess that's what I'll eat. But let's get back to what we were talking about. And that, I was going to talk about ghost drivers. Yes, it's a real thing. Since the dawn of time. Ghost drivers are a very real thing. It's just a fake co-driver. Back in the day, if you ran 2 logbooks, you'd say your co-driver's asleep in the sleeper or blah, blah, blah. You know, I remember one time, guys were actually just driving down the road, run out their book, they'd swap trucks, grab a new logbook, and they had a whole new 10, just back and forth. Stupid things like that happen. E-log was supposed to fix all that. It did not. In fact, when I was training, if a guy quit or he got fired and he was still logged in the computer, I'd just leave him in for as long as I could, just because it unlocked the computer and I could actually see what was happening. I never ran on their book because they weren't employees anymore, but I did like having the E-log unlocked. But I mean, it's just an old game with a new twist. It's just the way it is. And it's just typical government trying to manage the unmanageable. You know, yeah. And like I predicted, it would take a driver about 2.5 days to figure out how to cheat. And basically, like I said, all a ghost driver is a person, real or otherwise, who is a co-driver. It's been a big problem since day one, since long before E-log. You know, on paper, the E-log is supposed to solve all these problems, but people are people and they are creative, and truthfully, our customers have not changed the way they do anything. They were supposed to. They promised us. They did not. So, I mean, you're sitting there dealing with all of this. So basically, we're still playing the same games we did on paper, but they all have a new twist. So I ended up down here in Shorter, Alabama. I'm going to be here till about 4 tomorrow morning, and then get up and drive the 40 miles up there. They say there's parking up there, but you know, you get around Opelika and all that on a Sunday after, there's no parking up there. It's all jammed up by the locals, and I'm not going to sit there and try to find a place when I got a place. But back to what we were talking about. You know, it just, when it comes to all of this logbook stuff, the FMCSA, D.O.T, all these guys, they're not playing. Get out there and you can get online and go find, there's a website, I forgot what it was, but it actually gives you it's an attorney website, but it gives you all the points for everything, for all the different violations and the whole complete list. I had it on on a video a while back, and it's not a joke. Logbook violations and go running over your time and stuff, it's almost as many points as DUI and reckless driving. These guys are nuts. You know, like I told you before, I get a following too close, that was 8 points. I get a 1 minute and 24 seconds over my logbook, that was 24. So they're not playing. And a lot of guys are are just thinking it's taking the risk. Now, here's the thing. When you have administrative access to your logbooks, it's really easy to get in the habit of just adjusting things. And that's how it starts. I need to fix this. I need to move this. I'll tell you what, your computer keeps a log of all of that. Whether you think it does or not, everything's web-based, everything's connected. It knows. And you're not fooling anybody when you get audited. I had a friend of mine got this load and things just got screwed up. And he could have gotten off it. He could have called them up and said, I can't do it. It just, things got messed up. But you know what? He's got his own authority and all that. And he decided that he'd make it. So he got in there and messed with this and screwed with that. And it was a one-time deal. But I know when you start making this a habit, that's when the trouble happens. The cops are going to understand, well, every cop except the one I get is going to understand that sometimes things happen. But I'll tell you this, sometimes you just have to take your lump and accept it being for what it is. One of the problems that when you get into the bureaucracy of all of this, and I hate talking politics, but trucking, to a sense, is very political. There's a lot of it doesn't matter what side you're on. Politics doesn't care. Everything we do out here has political ramifications to it. You know, when the deregulation happened, I know what they said. They created general freight, but what they ended up doing was creating mega companies and killing the union, which I will always attest that's what they really wanted to do. So they freed up general freight. Well, that created mega companies. Well, then it's been a cascade down. Well, they created the CDL after that, saying, well, we need to control this. Well, everybody has a chauffeur's license, you need a driver's license, because back then drivers had 4, 5, and 6 licenses. A lot of states, there was no reciprocity. I knew guys that had 2 or 3 licenses. And Arizona was one of the last holdouts where you could get a 25 or 30-year license. And it didn't matter if your license was suspended in another state or something like that. You could go get one and it would be legal. So they did the CDL to do away with that. And then they started all of these other programs, and it just made things just continually worse. Well, the final straw was when they changed the hours of service in 2004. And I will always contend that it was for driver safety. It's never for safety. It was because these companies lobbied. They wanted, back then, they were starting to get big into the leasing. And they wanted team drivers. They wanted these trucks to never stop. And that's what that was about. So, it's never about safety. It's never about the driver. It's never about, politically, it's about trying to manage the unmanageable. And I knew this wouldn't work from the day I started driving. The government never makes anything better. Ronald Reagan said it the best. The most scariest things you can hear from a government official is, hi, I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. I do know that there's a lot of things. I don't take a lot of chances anymore like I used to. I've seen the writing on the wall. It's not good. We don't have the autonomy that we used to. And most of these old timers, the only reason they still stay in trucking is because they remember the good times. Most truck drivers don't like the customers, and they don't like the picking up and delivering and all that. What they really like is the in-between time. And back in the day, in-between time was when you could just be you. You get in the truck 2 or 3 days, no cell phones, no computers, no nannies. You make a check call in the morning, but a lot of times they didn't want to hear from you until you were empty or until there was a problem. A lot of times they just wanted a check call in the morning, and you just call them when you got a chance. And a lot of guys miss that. I miss that. And it's gone. That's gone. I'm not gonna lie. There's still a portion of it out there, but I'm dealing with dispatchers and load planners that are 20 years younger than me who just they just don't get it. And truthfully, they just don't care. And that right there is probably the hardest thing I've had to deal with. It's just, they just don't care. And when it comes to the D.O.T, they don't care anymore either. It's just, the rules are the rules and the facts are the facts. And they have, well, I don't give a crap when anybody says they have a quota, but they are told, hey, this is happening, we need to start focusing on this, or this is happening and we need to start focusing on this, or we need to start focusing on this. It's a real thing, and too many people are abusing the privilege, and that is what needs to stop. Look, I know things are going to happen. Things are going to happen. And just like back on paper, you know, nobody really cared if you fudged it 15 minutes this way, or, you know, moved everything back 25 or 30 minutes, or did this. What got a lot of people in trouble was just unnecessarily doing it. There was no reason for it. I know guys that would rewrite their logbook every day, and you're like, why? You don't need to. I make more money now, even as a company driver on E-Log. I made more money than I ever did running outlaw, running illegal, running. When you're running for good people, you make good money. But what I'm discovering, and I talk to the safety guys a lot, is that these D.O.T guys can go a lot deeper into the logbooks than you think. And when you have an approved logbook, it means that it syncs up with their software. And when you hook up to their software, something interesting happens. When the DOT syncs up with your logbook and looks at it, it color codes everything. And there's one thing they're looking for, and that's light blue. Light blue is your PC. Your PC will get you in a lot of trouble if you use it incorrectly. Also, they're looking for things that have been moved. Everything that gets edited is flagged. Everything. There needs to be flagged. It needs to be a reason. But what they're looking for is a continual pattern. And it'll pop that pattern out like that. This isn't the old days where 3 or 4 DOT guys spend a week at your business going through all of your stuff. They plug into your program, and within minutes, they're nuts deep into it. And this is happening. You just have to understand that these guys act a real cavalier with it right up to the moment they're busted, and then they can't understand why they're uninsurable anymore. Yeah, you're not going to lose your license for CSA points, but I'll tell you this, you'll lose your job. The insurance company dictates a lot of stuff out here, and your CSA points are one of them. You guys are like, no, CSA points and insurance. No. When you start getting up to, 50%? I've heard it as low as 20 points. You have to start justifying what you're doing and explain what happened. And it's a very real thing. The insurance company isn't playing out here. They look at your points, look at your record, look at all of this, and it's a real thing. Don't believe me? Ask your insurance carrier. At the end of the day, you just need to quit screwing with your logbook. I predicted this was going to happen years ago, and I'm surprised that they're only reporting on it now, because I know it's a thing, but I think it's probably gotten to the point where it's out of control. And from what I'm seeing from the CSA right now, and from the FMCSA, and from the D.O.T, the gloves are starting to come off. Guys, watch yourself. This is going to get really ugly before it gets better. So just a little food for thought. Take care of yourself out there. Keep your books straight, and we'll see you next video.